After the break, we've got a political superstar in the making, the SNP's Mhairi Black. Welcome back. I'm delighted to be joined by Mhairi Black. Mhairi, you're a member of the Work and Pensions Select Committee. It's just come out with a report saying that this so-called triple lock on pension payments, which basically says, you know, that pension payments should be the higher of, you know, earnings, inflation, etc. Why have you signed up for that, given that one of your great campaigns is to help basically poorer people, and surely giving more to poor pensioners is a good thing?
Well, I think that on the whole, the Conservative record on pensions as an overall topic just now is just horrendous just now.
And why vote for lower pensions?
Well, I think that what you need to bear in mind is that when you're on a committee, it has to be cross-party. So I can't always have exactly what I would want. I mean, we know that the SNP's policy is to maintain the triple lock, and I think that's a very sensible position to hold. But in terms of a cross-party report, we're looking at different ways that we can answer the question on pensions. So
it sounds as though you sort of disagree, but in the interest of Select Committee harmony,
pretty much,
you decide to sign up. Now, your personal campaign, the Private Members Bill, is to reduce the sanctions on benefit payments when they break rules. But you know, we've got a big and ballooning, some would say, welfare bill. One of the priorities at a time when there's chronic shortage of money for health, for education, is to try and make savings in welfare. Can we afford?
Yes, I think that one of the things that we need to hammer home is this idea that we have these economic troubles and therefore it's the poorest in our society that it should fall upon is just ridiculous. I would like to see people like Philip Green and these people who avoid paying tax. I would rather see us chasing after them than chasing after the vulnerable. So what my private members bill is recognising is the fact that where I would like to get rid of sanctions altogether.
Altogether,
I would love to do that, but the reality is...
Can people, I mean, history shows you, can you trust people to tell the truth?
Oh, come on, of course. I mean, you look at the figures just now. 0.8%, I believe, of benefits were fraudulently claimed, and yet the general public thinks that it's a third of all benefits. So what the Private Members Bill is trying to do is sort out one of the problems just now, which is that the DWP only commissions guidelines for job centres to deem when someone should be sanctioned and when they shouldn't. Now, guidelines can be interpreted however you want. It depends where you are, what job centre you're in, the mood of the person that you're dealing with. So what I'm trying to do is something which I think is very uncontroversial, which is instead of having vague guidelines, have a formal code of conduct. Have it so that it's in writing, right, this is when sanctions shouldn't apply. You have to take into account an individual's caring responsibilities, their mental health, their physical health, their housing situation, all of these things, because the stories that I have heard and experienced as an MP, but also throughout the UK as part of this select committee, is just absolutely appalling. And the fact that we're hammering these people more says a lot about the kind of government we've got just now.
Now, it looks as though Nicola Sturgeon will be joining forces with Gina Miller when it comes to the Supreme Court case on whether MPs should have the final say on leaving the EU. That would be an extraordinary thing, wouldn't it? The sort of First Minister of Scotland, in a sense, taking on the Prime Minister of the UK through the courts.
Honestly, I don't think it's that big a deal, because what we've seen so far is an incredible lack of leadership from the UK government in terms of clearly not having a plan for Brexit. I think it's fair to say Nicola Sturgeon was the only one that had sat down and thought of a plan. But I think the
way... But it is a big deal, isn't it, for the First Minister to...
The way in which the devolved administrations, and not just Scotland, but Wales also, have been treated since Brexit, I think is appalling. So I think any move...
In what sense?
Because we are no further forward in understanding what Brexit actually means. We are having no coherent or reasonable responses to the fact that Scotland voted to remain within the EU. The government can't seem to answer very, very simple questions about access to the single market or things like that. So I think that for the First Minister...
So basically you think it would be a great thing if Nicola Sturgeon does go ahead and make this change?
No, I think she's got to be sensible and to do what is best and what is in the best interest for Scotland. And I think that Theresa May at this moment in time is leaving her with very little option given the lack of information that the devolved administrations are getting.
And finally, and sorry, people are going to think I'm being youngist or ageist, I'm not quite sure which way around by asking you this, but you were 21 when you were elected.
20.
20 when you were elected. I think you're all 22 now?
22 now,
yeah. Amazing. Quite a lot younger than me. How did the House of Commons feel to somebody of your generation, as it were? Did it feel a weird place?
I think, to be honest, it's not about generation. I think for all my colleagues it feels weird because the House of Commons is archaic in so many ways, and I've said before it can't make up its mind whether it's a museum or a functioning parliament, and I think that's where a lot of our frustration comes from.
What would be one big thing, if you had one big reform to the way the House of Commons works, what would it be?
Changing the voting system. I mean, if we have because voting takes about 20 minutes for one vote because of the palaver of going through a list and going through doors and things.
Basically electronic voting.
Basically, because, I mean, if we have, say, 4 votes on a piece of legislation, that's an hour that we're paid a fortune, quite frankly, to stand in a corridor and do nothing.
I think that's probably one of the few things that you're going to say that the Daily Mail's going to agree with you about. Paying a fortune for doing very little is something they tend to be grumpy about. Now, don't go away, because after the break, I'll be changing into my satin pants and gold lame jacket.